BRI is important for one reason only: integration. It's absolutely fundamental to economic progress along the whole road and belt initiative. All those countries that will really benefit from actually being more integrated with each other, but more integrated also with the global economy as well. So it's fundamental for their economic progress, I think, that this integration theme is a strong theme in the BRI. Very much so. BRI is pushing, I think, the whole integration theme very well. It's also making the economic case for integration. You know, integration isn't just good because it's a nice thing to do, but it's important in terms of reducing costs, the costs of trade across these countries, between these countries. And of course, what it's also doing is not just the economic stuff, but also the transfer of ideas, the exchange of ideas between nations. You know, it's bringing know-how, it's bringing management expertise from one nation to another. And that is really, really important. But BRI alone can't do this. I think you also have to have a mindset as part of BRI that the investments have to bring the highest standards possible. By which I mean good, transparent systems, good open procurement, good corporate governance. All of these things are very, very important in all of the BRI projects that we do. The other thing BRI is really, I think, right to take advantage of is that there is a spirit in many of the countries on the Belt and Road of wanting actually to break down all barriers between them. I'll give you an example: Central Asia, where for many years these countries were very much almost, locked in their own mindsets. They were not really linking with each other. I think what has happened in the last 2 years, since Uzbekistan opened up, the fact that you can have a much greater cross-border relationship, economic and political relationship, helps BRI enormously. It makes it a very, very important thing that these countries want now to work across borders and across boundaries in the way they didn't want to before. Well, I mean, we're committed in a number of ways. Let me give you some concrete examples. Infrastructure investment is fundamental to BRI, clearly. This is an area where EBRD is very, very strong. Let's start from the very beginning. It's not that there aren't many infrastructure projects. There are many. The problem has been in the BRI countries that often those projects are actually not structured properly, they're not thought through, because often people don't have the capability and capacity to really design the projects in the right way. And this is where EBRD's infrastructure project preparation facility can really make a difference. That's the first thing. Secondly, infrastructure is expensive, and many budgets are very pressed, very pressurized. So developing alternative ways of financing these projects, for example through PPPs, is really, really important. So we finance a lot of projects now as PPPs. A third area where EBRD can really make a difference is, of course, the whole policy area. You cannot create, say, a PPP project in a BRI country without actually having the right regulatory framework. And PPP regulations are very, very important. So in EBRD's case, to give you an example, in Kazakhstan, the whole PPP law was, EBRD was fundamentally involved in redesigning that law to make PPPs possible. And that is why we now have the Bakad road PPP in Kazakhstan, which is why we worked here in Turkey as well on PPPs, Turkish hospitals PPPs. These are things that we've helped design, because not just the investment, we also work on the policy side too. And fundamentally, all of this infrastructure has to be sustainable. This is not the old world of just unsustainable infrastructure. This is the new world of green infrastructure. And this is EBRD's calling card. Of all the multilaterals, we're all doing a lot in this area, but this is an area where EBRD is incredibly strong: sustainable infrastructure. We had a target that we would reach 40% of all investments by EBRD by 2020 would be in the green economy area. We hit that target last year. So we're 3 years ahead of schedule. And that's because this team that I have the privilege to lead has a fantastic skill set in sustainable infrastructure as part of that. And so that's something we will take forward very, very strongly.